Welcome to Tossing Grenade the Windmills. Windmills.
My sincere apologies for missing yesterday. It's been a crazy couple of days. Interviews, job changes, anybody who really cares to follow can probably see more details on my author page or author blog or the linked blogs there. But we're coming up on the last 6 chapters after this one. So probably tomorrow I'm at least going to record those 6. Going forward, the future is a little bit of a mystery. As it is, though, I'm currently paying to have that edited, to have Grenade Man vs. the Zombies edited. So I will probably be reading that, if not for the first of the year, or immediately after these podcasts are done. And we shall see what happens. But in the meantime, here is Chapter 49 of Precyber by T.C. Ricks and Ken Leitner. Ezekiel's mood improved on the flight down to the farm. He had more than the usual amount of covert work to do this evening, and the farm served his needs well. During the flight, he had entertained thoughts that the Clark his new anonymous employees saw was not the same Clark who had dogged many of his recent moves. How after meeting the 2 Colombians and getting a full description, he had to admit the truth. Clark Yossarian knew about them, and therefore the revolution knew about them. He picked them up from the bus stop himself. He wanted no one to connect these 2 to him. He decided to keep them in the vehicle while they discussed arrangements. He drove back to the farm at first, while he considered how to deal with the situation. The simplest solution was to activate the laser security system, as he had so many times before. Afterwards, he could start fresh on his plan with some other mercenary, maybe Carl. However, shortly after he met them, Ezekiel knew Mike had found the best people for the job. Ezekiel hated waste, so instead of killing them, he joked with them and outlined his plan. After the next intersection, he turned and headed for the next bus stop down the line. Of course, he had never intended for them to live long after the plan. He made up details for them on how they could return to Colombia after the explosion. However, Ezekiel's plan had Aquanaware operatives killing the 2 shortly after the event. Patsies who could talk caused trouble, especially ones who had met Ezekiel Norn. The last remaining problem was Clark. Fortunately, Ezekiel knew how to pull those strings. When he reached the bus stop, he tried to pay them. He expected them to ask for money. He had brought $50,000 just in case. He cared little how much they asked for, since he planned to recoup his investment after they died. However, he had to bargain with them anyway. "Senor, this is not going as smoothly as we had hoped. I'm afraid we're going to need more money to do this job for you." Ezekiel replied, "Oh? Well, I thought we had an arrangement already. I only brought half of the $10,000 you agreed to with Mike. Senor Mike is dead. This agreement is meaningless now." The second man added, "Plus you're something of a famous person. I'm sure secrecy is very important to you." Ezekiel said, "I see. Look, neither of us wants this to get ugly. I make it hurt, and you would surely die. So let's drop any pretense of blackmailing me. I agree the job became a tad more complicated than originally intended. But that's true of nearly all such work. I may have a little in my pocket, but mostly we can only negotiate the back end anyway. We want 100,000, and we'll need half of that up front. If you are short today, we can drop the rest off later. You can drop the rest off later." Ezekiel paused. Of course he could just pay them now, but that would leave them suspicious. He had to pretend to consider their offer first. It was a shameless waste of time, but he had to go through the motion regardless. I'll give you the 10,000 now and 10,000 when the job's done. Anything less is extortion. You can't seriously expect me to agree to 10 times the original fee. 75,000. 10,000 now and 20,000 on the back end. We'll need more up front, senor. Ezekiel pretended to check his pockets and then feigned surprise. Oh, it seems I brought more than I thought. How about 20,000 now and 10,000 on completion? 30,000 on the back end. 20,000. The men turned to each other and to consider the offer. Ezekiel pulled 2 of the 5 envelopes he had prepared out of his jacket pocket and offered them to the first man. The second man grabbed them, and they both got out of the car. Ezekiel pulled away. He had one more detail to attend to at the farm. With most operatives, the ShadowNet could only provide a text terminal interface. It worked well enough, but Gabriel had one of the few setups that could broadcast video. On the downside, he only knew one other contact that could feed him video, and that contact worried so much about secrecy that he used a mask and distorted the outgoing video. It was almost useless, but not quite. Gabriel sat down to answer a call from that contact, the Shadow Leader. The Shadow Leader had set up the ShadowNet and used it to coordinate activities between various cells and agents. Emily had been a direct agent, but theoretically, the Shadow Leader only talked to other cell leaders like Gabriel. Gabriel never completely trusted him. Gabriel had operated his cell long before the Shadow Leader had come along. However, under the control of Shadow Leader, the movement had gone far, and Gabriel respected that. "Gabriel work," the fuzzy head said on the other end of the line. Shadow Leader wore a ski mask, probably. The distortion made it hard to tell. "Yeah, Shadow Leader. What news do you have?" The video feed responded. "Something big this time. A man named Laban Adonai has contacted us. He claims to know about 2 terrorists recently smuggled into the country who plan some kind of bombing at the next drama gala." Gabriel knew a little of Laban's history and replied, "Why would you trust this man? He's probably just after a little money." "No, Gabriel. We can't say how, but I was able to confirm his report. Aqua Noir is going to try something big. They think another terrorist attack will allow them to increase their control of the government. Gabriel, thousands of people could die. We have to stop this one." Gabriel guessed that Shadow Leader's other source was some high-placed operative in Aqua Noir itself. That made it a serious threat. "Okay, what can we do about it?" "We can have operatives on the lookout at the gala." "No, we have to be sure about this. I've decided to take an unprecedented step. Now, I know you don't like people at your base, but this is very important, Gabriel. I want you to pick up Laban and put him in the video conference with me. I need to learn everything I can from him, and you have the best terminal out there." Gabriel decided that the time had come to put his foot down. "I don't think that's going to work," Gabriel said. Tone was respectful but fair. This man had done wonders for their cause, but Gabriel would not let this happen. The Shadow Leader's silence shook Gabriel. Gabriel knew Shadow Leader loved the sound of his own voice. Gabriel had gotten used to Shadow Leader's habits by now, but this silence was bad. It felt like an awkward, angry silence, the kind that often held murderous rages. Shadow Leader finally spoke. "May I ask why?" "Laban is tainted. I think we both know what happened the last time someone compromised my organization. I understand the urgency of the situation, but I can't take this risk. I told you I will not risk my people again. That's why no one but my people, I personally screened, know the location of the nerve center, and I think it has paid off." "Has it?" More silence, of course. "Well, how many of our people have been picked up by the inpigs? Only a few, and always for pretty obvious reasons. There's no evidence we have a mole." "True." Gabriel waited. Shadow Leader did not say anything. 2 could play this game. The 2 of them spent the better part of 5 minutes without saying anything. Shadow Leader coughed twice uncomfortably, but Gabriel didn't care. "How do you know Laban is tainted?" The Shadow Leader relented first. Gabriel smiled. Another moment, and Gabriel would have hung up on the bastard. He had better things to do than have pissing contests with virtual faces. "We've connected Laban to Lyson Burr." Shadow Leader looked shaken, though Gabriel had trouble knowing for sure. Reading body language from a masked and distorted face gave Gabriel a headache, but in this case it was pretty damn clear. Shadow Leader asked, "Do you have proof of this?" "I do." "What?" "Quite a bit, actually. We've got the evidence that he used when he framed Clark. We can do more than clear Clark's name 6 or 7 times over." Shadow Leader put his arm behind his head. "What exactly does the journal say?" "It says a lot of things, but most importantly, it says that Lyson tried to hire Laban to screw Clark, and Lyson also directed some Aquanoir goons to kill Clark." "Was it just Lyson?" "So far as we can tell from the papers, yes. But I have my suspicions." "Do you?" That was an odd tone of voice. Something about this threatened the Shadow Leader. Gabriel wondered how. He had to find out more. I do." "Really?" Gabriel nearly lost it. Shadow Leader was playing children's games. He was playing off on words and silences like some kind of a 5-year-old, and he had threatened his security and his people. Gabriel could not tolerate. Still, he managed to hold it together. A confrontation with Shadow Leader could jeopardize the cohesion of the movement. No one knew the identity of Shadow Leader. He was, after all, accountable to no one but himself. Gabriel took a deep breath. "Yes, really, Laban Madoni, an unacceptable risk to my installation." Yes, damn it, my installation. I put it together. I recruited the people. I pay to keep it running. It's not like you send me resources. If anything, I send them to you. How much have I sent to other cells when they needed it? So yes, my installation. Insolence. Do you want our cause to crumble into 1,000 little ineffective cells working at odds with each other? No, of course not. But this is too dangerous. I could expel you from the network. Yeah, you could, but then you'll have to answer the other cell leaders who will start to ask questions. Plus, how do you know I haven't already contacted a few about this very problem? It was a weak bluff, but Gabriel was thinking a little off the cuff right now. Shadow Leader finally lost it. "You little insect! Who do you think you are? We're talking about the fate of the whole country here. Didn't you hear any of what I told you earlier? Could you really let those people die? Thousands of people? Are you willing to let Aquanoir get all that power just because you're not willing to risk a handful of operatives?" Gabriel paused before making another brash statement. He had sent people to their death. It happened. Moreover, he had watched people die. He was no stranger to death. He had lost many people he cared about, Horse most recently. When a death bought the movement something important, he could make a sacrifice. However, this felt like a complete waste of resources and possibly lives. He had more than just operatives at his installation. He had innocent people he had promised to protect, people he already had let down once before. He looked at the small, ugly ashtray on the right hand of the terminal. It belonged to one of the fathers who had died the last time a mole had exposed his people. It had been a joke, a needless joke. Until now, he had kept his promise. Until now, he had kept his people safe. Now, Shadow Leader threatened them with his own agenda. He claimed that somehow thousands of people depended on this, that it required all these other people to share the risk. Well, Gabriel had planned to move shortly anyway. Clark had attracted too much attention already. This could be the perfect opportunity to show up the Shadow Leader in front of all the other cell leaders. The time had come for something drastic. All right, Gabriel wanted to wash his mouth out with soap. All right, Shadow Leader. I'll send someone to bring him here. Excellent. Yeah, and if he doesn't pan out, if this is a false lead, it won't be. You'll see. Yeah, Gabriel took a deep breath. We will.
This has been the Tossing Grenades at Windmills podcast. I'm Thomas Ricks. Music by Melanie Ricks. Voices by Skip Huffman and Josie Bergen-Lawson. Copyright 2012.
Kenneth Leitner
and Red Anvil Amalgamated.
to fight the forces of evil!